All right, so it'd probably just come in with like some cool theme music. Want to give a count? Three.
From three?
From three.
Okay.
It's 3, 2, 1. And 3, 2, 1. We're live, baby. This is it.
All right. This is let's
This-
try. All right.
Yeah, no second takes. This is
No,
the first.
no, this is first take.
Definitely.
First take.
Welcome everybody to the first ever episode of a new podcast.
Yeah, basically an F1 podcast. That's actually the name of the podcast. That's
Yeah, we couldn't come up with anything better.
yeah.
We are not creative.
We're not.
I'm your host, Dan Mendez.
And I am your co-host, Chris Valerio.
You're an equal host, buddy.
Equal
Come on,
host.
we're co-hosts
Isn't
together.
that what co-host means? You know.
Yeah. Well, this is a new podcast that we're creating because we love Formula One
Yes.
and motorsport.
Pretty much.
This is my third podcast that I've produced.
Yep.
This is your first.
This is my first. Yes.
Things can get a little awkward.
Yes.
What's the show all about, Chris?
It's basically an F1 podcast. You know. That's why we called it.
Yeah,
that.
that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
We are not experts. We're not going to pretend to be experts. We don't know very much about Formula One. Definitely not as much as some of the ones who have podcasts.
Right.
But
Right.
that does not mean we can't have a podcast of our own.
Exactly.
We certainly have all the qualifications when it comes to cameras and audio and green screen
Yep.
technology.
Yeah.
Well,
Perfect
hope.
green screen behind it. You probably can't see the green screen.
no,
now.
you're not. It's something else.
Yeah.
We're somewhere else right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we're starting this podcast. We're very excited about it, and we're two Drive to Survive stans who are trying to be experts in the sport.
Right.
And we just want to take you on a journey
Of our
of becoming
of us
experts.
just learning. You know.
Of just yeah.
Yeah.
So episode 1, what's it all about, Chris?
Today we're going to be talking about testing day 1, 2, and 3.
Mhm.
Some of the news that's been coming out with the drivers recently, and the some of the sponsors.
We have so much to talk about.
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
There's so much happening.
for the last couple of weeks we've been trying to put this podcast together.
Mhm.
And we've been just trying to figure out what week to actually start it because we didn't want to start it on the first race because we knew there'd be a lot of stuff to talk about.
Even before then. Yeah.
Right. But we didn't want to start it too soon because then we would start and then not really have anything to talk
Right.
about.
Right.
Well, I think we started on the perfect week because this week everything happened.
Right.
This was right after the quote-unquote testing we've had in Barcelona, which was just a shakedown, but it was a test. I mean, teams were out there. They were testing.
Right.
They found out a lot about their cars. And drivers got seat time. That's testing for
Right.
me. But the real testing, the actual televised testing that we've been experiencing, happened just a few days ago. It was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Right.
Today's Sunday. And that was the actual testing. Now, all 10 teams were in Bahrain testing their new cars. And what new cars are those, Chris?
Like the teams?
Well, yeah. I mean, like, what's new this year with the cars? Pretty much everything, right?
Yeah, pretty much everything. Rules, regulations, and then the cars themselves are a lot different than they were last year.
Right.
Especially the liveries and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I just put you on the spot.
yeah.
All right. So this year is a lot of things. So they're focusing more on ground effect, something they haven't done since the early 80s. So it's been 40 years since we've done ground effect cars. Since then, we've had a lot of barge boards, a lot of emphasis on aero on the car itself. And that's great and all, but it does create a lot of dirty air. So for the last few years, some time, actually, dirty air's played a big part in Formula One, and we're finally going to see a lot less dirty air and hopefully more racing close together because of that. So, ground effect essentially is all the downforce is going to be generally generated by the underfloor of the car. And teams knew this going in. That is going to be difficult because of one thing, and that is being called porpoising.
Yes,
porpoising. Yeah. So, do you know how porpoising works, Chris?
I don't know how it works. I know what it is.
Okay, what is it?
It's just where the car kind of it happens most on straights, where the car just bounces up and down, and it's a huge problem because the drivers can't see anything.
Right.
Because they're just bouncing up and down. It's a huge problem for the new cars.
Right, and also probably affects the performance as well.
Right, 100%.
Because if the car's bouncing, the suspension's not doing its job and providing enough grip.
Right.
But so essentially what happens is with these ground effect cars is as the air passes underneath the car. Again, I'm not an expert.
We both are.
We're not experts at all. I'm a little bit more well-read than Chris is. That's really honestly it is. But what it is essentially the aero underneath the car stalls. Much like sort of like an airplane. If an airplane just goes straight up, it no longer has lift and it'll just fall down, right?
Right.
Well, the aero stalls if the car gets too low. The car gets lower as it has more downforce. And effectively, it stalls and the car violently shoots back up because there's no more downforce. As it shoots back up, the rear wing provides downforce again, and it shoots back down. The aero stalls, shoots back up, and it just keeps happening back and forth, up and down, up and down, up and down. And it happens very violently and very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Like you'll see slow motion, and it doesn't look like slow motion. Like, no, the drivers are just going up and down.
It's very fast, yeah.
Yeah. So, they've been struggling with that. A lot of teams cutting holes in their floor to sort of reduce the downforce or change the downforce that's going to the rear end of their car. A lot of them changing the ride height. But it affects performance too, because by doing that, you're effectively having less downforce and less grip, and your car's not going to go as fast. So it's, I think, a problem that a lot of people know about. I don't think they're going to fix it.
You don't think they're going to fix it?
I don't think so.
So it's going to be a problem the whole season?
I don't think it's going to be a problem the whole season. I think that the FIA is going to FIA, not FAA, because that's the airplane people, the race people.
Yeah.
The FIA is gonna have to step in and change
some rules about it, because
all they have to do is change the ride height regulations.
Right.
I think the teams are just running too low ride heights. But yeah, I think it's just gonna be an issue where drivers are just gonna get sick, or they're gonna end up having crashes because of it. I mean, we're already seeing damage, like Alfa Romeo.
The side panel came off, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But they had to actually get parts overnighted because they broke because of porpoising.
Right.
So, yeah. That's...
Talking about drivers getting sick, Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, we want to jump ahead towards that.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Ricciardo has caught COVID. He is the 7th driver to check COVID? I think
not this year.
No, not this year, but
I think total.
7th in total.
Total, yeah.
Yeah.
Which means like nearly half the grid has had COVID.
Yeah.
At one point. But I think it's... He said it best. He said better now than next week.
Right.
So
he did miss the last day of the Bahrain testing, which kind of sucks. But it doesn't look like he's going to be missing the Bahrain Grand Prix yet.
Yeah.
But if he does,
Oscar Piastri.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Alpine have been gracious enough to lend, if needed, to McLaren, Oscar Piastri, who is 2021's Formula 2 champion, who doesn't have a seat this year, but is an Alpine test and reserve driver, which is, I guess, the second best thing.
Right.
But, Alpine, gracious enough, want Oscar to get the seat time and is totally willing to let McLaren use him.
Right.
If they don't need him first. I would assume Daniel Ricciardo being Daniel Ricciardo, he was all over that paddock. So I can imagine everyone was a little bit panicking. But speaking of COVID, I I want to talk a little bit about Drive to Survive.
Okay.
A little scene with Lewis Hamilton, and this was a good point. I actually really didn't even think about it. Max and Lewis last year had an amazing Titanic battle. We don't even need to talk about it. This podcast is not big enough to even begin to talk about the Titanic battle we've had last year.
Right.
But, I mean, it was so close.
It was very close.
So close
last year.
that if any of those guys caught COVID, that's it.
Right.
That's over. That was that would have been the title for Lewis or Max if they got COVID.
Yeah, that would have been it.
And that's so they're jet setting around the world every week, right? They're around how many people?
A lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scene I'm talking about is in
media.
They were at Silverstone. It was the first race with actual crowd there.
Right. Yeah, that was the first race last year.
Yeah, and he was just like, "There's so many people. I don't want to get COVID."
Right.
You know, so I think that's gonna continue to be a part this year. Unfortunately, is the big cove.
Yeah.
Playing a role in the drivers' championship.
That might be a problem, and even the constructors championship.
Yeah,
that's still a problem.
I mean, Danny Rick had problems last season, but he is a good driver, and he is a driver that if he gets in the right car, in the beginning of the season, with the right, just momentum, he could challenge at least in the beginning of the season. Listen, don't at me on this, but he could compete for the championship. He has before.
He's a good driver. He's a very good driver.
And that's what he's there for.
Right.
Like
that's why he's at McLaren.
That's why every driver's there. They're all there to win races and potentially fight for a championship one day. Okay, but Danny Rick is up there with the best of them to be like he could do it.
Right.
I think last year was really tough to imagine him that way, but the guy's got it.
I mean, yeah, McLaren last year didn't have the best car they've ever had, and I think that played a big part in him not scoring enough points to.
Well, it wasn't necessarily McLaren have had I don't agree with you on that. I think they've had the best car they've had in years last year. The problem was Danny didn't know how to drive it
because he was a new driver for McLaren.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I forgot where I saw it, but Danny talked to Carlos Sainz, who had that seat before him. And Carlos literally told him, it's weird, right? Like, the car, at the end of the day, it's just a car. All the cars are relatively the same. But when it comes to racing, when driving them hard, the smallest things make a big difference.
Right.
You know, so it was just the way that Ricciardo's used to driving. Just didn't suit that car. So he had to learn the car he had to learn the race all over again to suit that car. Now, the question is, this year, is that still, does the DNA from the car last year translate to the car this year?
Right.
And I don't think so. I think...
You think it's a lot different from last year's
absolutely. Car? I think the cars are so different from the cars last year that any DNA that carried over is, it doesn't matter. They're all going to be so different to drive. So... he's gonna. I hope he doesn't miss the first round. I think if he does go in the first round, he might not do as well because he doesn't have as much mileage as say Lando does, who completed 200 laps this weekend.
Yeah,
he was the most laps, I believe. By the way, I want to say on this show, we try not to look on our phones. For those of you that don't know, those of you that are listening, we're videoing this as well. It might not look great yet. We're gonna try. We're gonna try to make this better, but try not to look at our phones. We try to remember facts as much as we can. So I'm gonna double check to see if in fact Lando did complete the most laps this weekend.
You might be right. I think he did.
Yeah, it's something I would have remembered. But speaking of this weekend, completing the most laps. Completing the fastest laps this weekend was Max Verstappen with a 1 minute 31. Now, again, these are brand new cars. We don't really have any other car to compare it to, right? Next year it'll be a little easier. You're like, you know what? Compared to last year, Max and everyone else, pretty much, the average time is 1 second faster. We don't really have, we can compare it to last year's cars all we want, but they're completely different cars. And I think the trend goes that last year's cars were way faster, just because they've had years of tuning and just building them up. Right. And these cars are so new still that they're still figuring out the whole porpoising thing. They're still figuring out the tire wear, the fuel. I mean, there's so much they have to figure out first before they can actually say, all right, let's try to make it faster.
Right.
So take these lap times with a grain of salt, because it has a lot to do with, yes, the driver, the car, and the team. They all have to be working together, I think. But Max Verstappen, defending world champion Max Verstappen, 1 minute 31 with the fastest time. Mick Schumacher was second with a 1:32.
That is insane. Mick Schumacher coming from...
That's nearly a second, though. But
his rookie debut last year, right?
Mm-hmm. But so this is for the whole test, the whole 3 days.
Okay.
This is the fastest of the weekend. Charles Leclerc third, Fernando Alonso, George Russell, Valtteri Bottas, Yuki Tsunoda, Sergio Perez, Lando Norris, Kevin Magnussen. Now, a couple things there. No Lewis Hamilton.
No Lewis Hamilton in the top 10?
No Lewis Hamilton in the top 10.
Kevin Magnussen, he's back.
Yeah, so we'll get to that. But if you guys remember last season, the whole sandbagging with Lewis and Bottas, they were sandbagging. But George Russell, top 10. Now, let me see. But yeah, back to what you said. Kevin Magnussen, 15 months after leaving Formula One in Abu Dhabi 2020 for Haas, leaving, going and performing in IMSA for the 24 Hours of Daytona. I was very surprised to see him there, racing for Chip Ganassi Racing, I hope. Did very, very well. Almost won on his debut, the 24 hours, the Rolex 24.
Mm.
I remember that very well. I was very proud of him. He did very, very well. Signed with Peugeot to compete in the World Endurance Championship.
Okay.
For Peugeot's return to the 24 Hours of Le Mans and that championship. They released him earlier this week to come back to Haas. Take it away, Chris.
So about Haas.
Mm-hmm.
Haas has gotten rid of Nikita Mazepin
Mm-hmm.
and their biggest sponsor, Uralkali.
Yeah. Well, listen. Let's not get too bogged down in that.
Right.
It's
we all know about Russia.
It's
Ukraine.
very political. It's very political, and we don't do politics on the show. That's something that I want to say right here, right now. We don't do politics on the show. Racing is very political in other ways, but that is world politics. We're not going to get bogged down into that. But the facts are facts. Nikita Mazepin has lost his seat due to some world politics that has been going on. It started with his visa, essentially.
His racing visa, yeah.
Basically, yeah. Well, he was not going to be able to enter certain countries to go race as a Russian driver. The FIA, I remember, had something about Russian drivers. And personally, I don't think it's fair. Whether you think Nikita Mazepin is a decent driver or not, it's not fair to bar them from driving. They have a seat. They have a seat for a reason. They should be able to drive. They have nothing to do with the war that's going on. And I say that because of drivers like Danny Kvyat, drivers like Robert Sportsman. I don't think it's fair to not let those guys drive based on their nationality.
Right.
So therefore, I have no problem with Nikita driving. He wasn't even driving under the Russian flag, I believe. If you looked at the timing tables and everything,
right.
It was all like the some weird world flag that represents no nation, essentially. He was effectively driving under no nation, or the Russian drivers something.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially what the Russian Olympic athletes have been doing. But anyway, as far as Uralkali goes, they were dropped, I think, basically to save face. I think Haas decided, you know what? Gene Haas, together with probably his people, decided, you know what, it's probably best if we don't associate with him anymore. We've already gotten a negative look being American with a Russian flag on our car.
Right.
You know, this is sort of just like a good excuse to cut him loose. And with that, Nikita lost his drive. His father is no longer funding the team.
Right.
There's no reason to keep Nikita in that team. He hadn't shown last year, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of many, that he deserves to be in that seat. And he should maybe F1. I think he maybe needed a little bit more time or whatever.
In F2.
Something. I don't think he deserved it necessarily. I think Robert Schwartzman, yes, another Russian driver, I think he maybe deserved it. I think that Nico Hülkenberg deserved it to come back.
100%.
I think that Kvyat maybe deserved it. Magnussen deserved it.
Romain Grosjean?
Steve Roman's different, though. And I think a lot of people's perception of him changed because of his accident. And personally for me, I always thought he was a decent driver. And if you see what he's doing now in IndyCar,
he's doing pretty well.
He's doing really well. He's at a top team now.
Yeah.
He's gotten pole position. He's gotten a podium. He's done really well. I haven't heard anything about him winning yet, so I hope that's not. I hope that doesn't age poorly. But anyway, I certainly hope he starts winning soon. I know that Ericsson went to IndyCar and is now winning. I know that certain F1 prospects are in IndyCar, such as Padua Ward, such as Connor Daly, such as I'm sorry, I'm so bad with names. There's a lot of Formula One prospects that just go to IndyCar because it is a little bit easier to get into, or it's a spec series essentially, so it's a little bit more even, a little bit better to fight for podiums and wins and championships than it is to be in F1, where you have Mercedes who win everything, and Red Bull who sometimes win, and Ferrari who haven't won in a really long time, and McLaren who just scored a 1-2 in Monza and have looked pretty well. Anyway, whatever. Chris is a Ferrari fan, but it's fine.
And, of course, as you can tell, he's a McLaren fan.
Everyone's a Ferrari fan, even a little bit. But I'm a McLaren.
I'm a Ferrari fan because of Carlos Sainz and a little bit of Charles Leclerc. I mean, you know, who's your favorite driver?
I don't have a favorite driver.
Lando Norris?
Checo, but I don't have a favorite driver.
Checo.
I love Checo. I think everyone.
Everyone loves Checo.
Everyone's a.
He's such a good driver.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy that he's at Red Bull and he has a chance to fight for some wins before he eventually does have to leave F1. I don't think that I'd love to see him possibly be in contention for the title. He is in a position where he could do that, I think. As far as win one, as we saw last year, you need to be good all season long, and Checo's great, but
he can be inconsistent sometimes.
Yeah, I think Max is a little bit more consistent, and that's why he's world champion now. Lewis is a hell of a lot more consistent than anybody else, and that's why he's 7-time world champion, almost 8-time world champion, almost 9-time world champion.
Yeah.
If we really think about it.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a lot of things, and I think Christian Horner said it best in an interview I saw recently, where he said it's a lot of things. It's the driver, it's the team, and it's the car. The car has to be reliable and quick. The team has to be reliable and quick, and
the driver has to be reliable and quick.
And the driver it all has to work together. And as soon as one thing of that fails, you are now vulnerable from attack from your rivals, essentially, and that's just how it works. That's how it's always going to work. But I think, you know, Red Bull were really good last year. Mercedes were really good last year, and that's why it was so close. Was because they were equally hungry, equally I think, there and ready for the challenge, and that's why we got a really good season. I think that this year, it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be business as usual, and Mercedes is going to dominate, or it's going to be business as usual, and one team is going to dominate. Okay? And that might be Mercedes, it might be Ferrari, it might be McLaren. I think that...
Could be Williams. No.
I don't know. It could be Haas. It could be Haas for all I know. Okay? Now, I'm not saying, oh yeah, Kevin Magnussen, 15 months away, comes back fastest time. He had 4 extra hours to do it than anybody else. And Haas don't have anything to hide. They were last place last year. No points. Fighting for survival. They don't care if everyone knows they're fast. They're going to go out and they're going to do the fast times. They're going to put the fast rubber on. They're going to get the car prepped to go quickly, and they're going to go. Versus Mercedes, they have a lot to gain by sort of holding back a little bit. Be like, you know what? We know we're quick. Let's not show it too much. Right. Same thing with Ferrari, same thing with McLaren. The top teams, they don't like showing it too much now. Next weekend, then we're going to know.
I'm very excited for next weekend.
Next weekend
is going to be a very good race. I'm really excited to see the new cars out on track racing each other. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Teams showing their really true pace.
Mm-hmm. I'm really interested to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I saw they did some practice starts the other day. It was like Vettel and Bottas and whatever. It was like 4 or 5 cars, and it was very interesting to see them, doing a practice start. But it's going to be very, very interesting going into turn 1. What's going to transpire, and there are some hurt feelings from last year. With Lewis and Max. They don't just forget that. Like, oh, he won the title, cool. I think that's
a very controversial title.
It's always gonna be, and Lewis is gonna be. How do I say this politely? He's not gonna let that go, and he isn't. He's holding all his cards, and so I want to talk about how Lewis is always gonna be this way. By the way. He's always going to be in Mercedes, too. George is perfect for Mercedes because he acts just like Lewis.
Right.
Just like him. In the way that, oh yeah, Ferrari look great. I think they look a lot better than us. And Carlos Sainz is like, that's classic Mercedes and classic. Like, they will compliment everybody else, give them confidence, let them know that they're doing great, and then show up round 1 and finish 1-2.
Right.
And so it's weird, like, a reporter will ask Lewis, do you think you're going to fall behind this year? Because your team didn't have enough time last year because we're fighting the championship? And he's like, why would I think that? I have confidence in my team. And then, he goes out just now and says, you know what, I don't think we're in a position right now where we're going to be fighting for wins.
Right.
It's so, they murk the waters up so that other teams and us, the fans, don't know what's going to happen. I think it's either going to be business as usual with Mercedes at the top and Red Bull close second, or vice versa.
Honestly, I really hope that doesn't happen. I
hope so too. I want
to see an underdog come up this year, like Haas.
That'd be very interesting. That's another possibility that could happen.
Right.
I don't think it's as possible as business as usual.
Right.
I think the other thing that I really hope happens is we have another 2012. And that was, I believe, 4 drivers going into the final round. Any of them could have taken the title. And it was like Sebastian and Fernando and Button and Weber, I believe. 2012 is highly regarded by a lot of people as the best season because it all shook down in the final race of the season. There was 4 drivers If they finished a certain way, it would be one guy. If they finished slightly different, it'd be another guy. That's what I want to see. I want to be in Abu Dhabi, and I want to say, like, if Norris finishes in 8th, he's the champion. But if Carlos finishes in 5th, he's the championship. But only if Leclerc wins the... Like, I want to be doing math. And I want to be on the final lap being like, who's the champion? What's going on? Who's going to... You know, last year was great. And it was controversial. But it was great. But I found myself half the race, Lewis was leading. And I was just like, well, that's it, isn't it? You know, it was great that it wasn't. Mm-hmm. You know, it's great that we got that last lap, and it was like, oh my gosh.
After Nikita Mazepin crashed.
No. Latifi crashed.
Oh, it was Latifi?
Latifi
it was not Nikita
crashed
Mazepin.
Racing Schumacher.
Oh, wow.
And so that's a big thing now, because like everyone's like, wow, Schumacher really didn't want his dad's record to be broken. So right. He crashed Latifi. No, but that, no, Latifi crashed.
I actually didn't know that. I guess I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, you blacked out. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, that was crazy. I mean,
that was crazy. That was the first time I think I freaked out like that over a sporting event.
Right.
I'm not a sports person, but I freaked out. I was like, Max is world champion. That was insane.
Yeah, we were like jumping around in the living room, and that was crazy.
That was great. And I hope to have another season finale like that very soon, if not crazier. But yeah, a lot of things are going on. A lot of crazy things are going on. So we talked about porpoising.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we have a list.
Yeah.
We talked about porpoising. We talked about a little bit of testing. There's not much to talk about testing. To be honest with you, the cars go around and round and round and round, and it's even more boring than usual. Because not really a whole lot of people crash because they're just trying to get as much data as possible. They're not really pushing, as you can tell. You know, there's Alfa Romeos up here and there's Mercedes down here. They're not. It's all over the place. They're just trying to gather data. I didn't watch a second of it. I just watched the highlight. I'll be honest with you. It's boring. It's like watching free practice,
right?
Essentially,
right.
If not more boring than that. But it does give a good perspective of like, wow, that's crazy. Haas was able to even be considered top 10, let alone like first day 2 with a guy they just threw in, a guy that doesn't even have his name on a racing suit yet. Like it was a spare racing suit they gave him.
Right.
You know, but this show's off the rails already, bud.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, first episode, we're off to the races with the first episode. We've already gotten through all the things we wanted to talk about, but not in the way we wanted to talk about them at all. So, we talked about Kevin Magnussen. We talked about Haas, their situation. I think Haas stole testing from everybody.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, I did not expect Haas to do that well in testing, honestly.
Well, it's not that they did well or anything like that. It's just every single thing seemed to be about Haas. It was like, Haas is having trouble. Looks like they're not doing well. Oh, Haas is having trouble with their sponsor. Does Nikita Mazepin have a seat? Nikita Mazepin doesn't have a seat. Oh, Pietro Fittipaldi might take that seat. Oh, Giovinazzi might take that seat. What? Kevin Magnussen's back. It's just like every single day I woke up.
Something new with Haas, yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, you were sending me stuff on Instagram, like, you're like, yo, look who's back. Yo, look what happened. Look what's happening with Haas.
Yeah, but, you know, Mick Schumacher, comfortably, second fastest time of the weekend, I believe.
Yep.
I believe the times I was reading before were of the weekend. I think he's doing really, really well. I think that Kevin being in the team will be really good for him because
Kevin can kind of take him under his wing.
Exactly. I think the main problem last year was Haas wanted Schumacher, and Haas got Schumacher. But Haas didn't have money. So they needed to get some sort of backing, and Dmitry Mazepin was there. And he said, you know what, my son, F2, why don't you take him? And
with your Alkali, that came
so
Nikita Mazepin.
Grosjean lost his seat. I think he's way better off in IndyCar.
Yeah.
No offense to him. No offense to him as a driver. I think he did really, really well with Lotus. I think he did really well with Haas, to be honest with you. But I think he's just better suited to IndyCar, to a spec series. like any driver, he needs the car. He needs the car. Any driver needs the car. I'm glad they brought Kevin Magnussen back, though. I don't think it would have been the same if they got Roman Grosjean back. Kevin, I think, still has time in F1 left. He's still very young. Kevin got a podium in his first ever race.
Yeah.
You didn't know that, did you? Well, his first ever race was with McLaren. Sorry, I'm going to take a sip.
He was with McLaren for a bit?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
He was a McLaren young driver, much like Lando was. Much like Checo was. Checo actually was the one who replaced Lewis at McLaren for a year in 2012, I believe, or 2013, something like that, when he went to Mercedes. Didn't go well. Left McLaren, went to Sauber, or yes, Sauber. He was in he was in Williams. He was at Sauber. I get those two confused. I went to Sauber for a couple years. Raced with Maldonado? Maybe? No. I don't know. Anyway, Checo was at Sauber. Eventually moved to Force India. Made a home at Force India, which then became Racing Point. Lost his seat at Racing Point after saving them. After the whole Force India thing. Got caught by Red Bull after he won his first ever race. After 100 and something starts, he finally won a race.
Yep.
And Red Bull signed him. And I think they did a really good job doing that. I think that's what Red Bull needed to do, because in a very similar situation to Haas needed to have a senior driver to teach young Mick and to sort of show Mick, like, look, this is where we need you. This is where you got to be, you know? And also, it's a huge... If Mick does better than Kevin Magnussen, someone that's been in the sport so long, that's a huge confidence boost to Mick. Right? And if Magnussen doesn't do as well, that's a huge, like, whoa, this kid's better than I. All right. And it's just competition does that. If you have the right drivers, they're going to feed off each other. You just need to be a proper team principal, which I think Gunther can be, and steer it in a positive direction to where they feed off each other in a positive way and they just get better and better and better, and they don't take it in a negative way and get worse and worse and worse. But yeah, Checo doing a really good job at Red Bull. We're just gonna go, I think, through all the teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, Checo's doing really well at Red Bull. He did a really good job last year. I think a huge part of how Max won the title
was because of Checo.
Was because of Checo.
Especially the last race. The last race, I mean, Checo played
the last
a huge
race
part.
In Turkey, he did really well. In what was the other race?
Was it that one in Mexico? He almost won his home Grand Prix?
He didn't almost win, but he got a podium, and he was doing really well. I'm really happy for Checo. I think he's in a really good spot right now.
I think Red Bull kind of saw that Checo was, good enough to be in a good. If he was in a good car, he could be an amazing driver, and I think. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's been in the sport so long,
right?
And the way he got in the sport was through McLaren. Mm-hmm. So Checo has always been a good driver. He's just never had
a good car.
The car,
right, yeah.
Exactly. And now, I think it's obvious. Within his first, I think, 6 races with Red Bull, he was on the podium. And you might say, oh, well, Max crashed out and Lewis had a crazy moment and just went straight when everyone turned left. But he was there. He started where he needed to start, and he won the race. You can say the same thing about Seb. Seb was on that podium too. Oh, he would have been on the podium if Lewis... That's racing, baby. People mess up. That's how sometimes you have to win. Ocon won a race this season because someone messed up. Because Bottas hit somebody and Stroll hit somebody and it just went off the rails. And that's how Ocon won. But if Lewis had pitted for... But he didn't.
Right.
And Ocon was there, baby. Yep. Oh, Russell would have never gotten that podium in Belgium if it was an actual... But he qualified second. He did all he needed to do to get a podium.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't have gotten the podium if he qualified 9th, but he didn't. He qualified second. You know, it wasn't his fault that the race didn't go forward and he got his race position. But that's just how racing goes. And I think the main thing that I've learned, and I think anybody who started watching Formula 1 recently thanks to Drive to Survive, myself and Chris included, anything can and will happen in Formula 1.
Right.
Anything can and will happen. George Russell can find himself in a Mercedes seat for the Sakir Grand Prix because Lewis has COVID. Who could have predicted that when it happened?
Right.
You know? It took forever for Russell to get signed for Mercedes, even after that awesome performance. Who could have predicted, like, if he didn't get that seat, that would have been still so, like, yeah, it's Formula 1. That makes sense. Anything can and will happen. You know, that's what I love about this sport. But, let's talk about other teams. Ferrari.
Ferrari. There's nothing really new with Ferrari, I mean, except for the car.
Car's beautiful.
Yeah.
The
car looks really good this year. It looks really
it's a tie between them and Alfa Romeo, personally, for the best car. I think Alfa Romeo just has a slight edge on them, but I think, you know, livery's not going to win the race. Let's just,
right.
You know, let's face it. But, yeah, Ferrari, beautiful car, beautiful design. Kind of mad that you're not sponsored by UPS anymore, but, you know. That's okay. We're not sponsored by UPS either, so
we're not. No.
But that's an inside joke. You don't have to get it. But yeah, I think what's so special about Ferrari is they have two drivers, and I think they're the only ones on the grid that I can confidently say have two drivers that could be champions tomorrow.
Yeah,
they could. I think about it. Lando's great. Hasn't won a race yet though. He's almost gotten it. He's gotten a couple podiums now. He knows what he has to do to win a race. It takes a little bit more than that to win the championship, though. You know? Ricardo has won...
We're talking about McLaren now.
McLaren, yeah.
We were talking about Ferrari.
I know, but I'm talking about, like, their competition now.
Yeah, okay.
Ricardo is great, but can he put it together? You know?
He doesn't... In my experience, I mean, I don't think he does well under pressure.
I think he does okay under pressure. I think all those guys do okay under pressure. I mean, if you really think about it, like, that's what they specialize in, is this guy's, like, literally right behind me, and I'm going into a braking zone right now, and it wouldn't take much to end my race right now. But, you know, that doesn't stop them from braking as late as possible or doing a move or moving the car side to side. Like, I think all those guys behave way better than any of us would under pressure.
Right. They have those... I mean, they live, breathe, and eat Formula 1.
That's their whole life.
Yeah.
You know, that's why a lot of them aren't married.
I mean, that's a lot of sports, though, you know?
Yeah. But, back to Ferrari, though. I think between Charles
Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, they're both very, really well-rounded drivers, honestly.
I think they're both equally well-equipped enough to go for the title. The problem is, if Ferrari is the only team going for the title, then it's teammate against teammate. Last year, I think Mercedes had a pretty clear line when to say, you know what, Bottas is not in it anymore. Let's, you know, use him as a way to help Lewis win it. Same thing with Red Bull. You know, they had a pretty clear, like, no, Max is doing it. You know, Checo just got here. He's not in the title fight. You're helping Max now. If we get to, like, round 3 or 4, and it's just Ferrari, like, winning races, and Charles and Carlos are tied, they have a decision to make. You know,
they're very.
Ferrari would be like, who's gonna be better suited to? They're either gonna be like, who's better suited to win the title? Who do we want to win the title? Or they're gonna just go
hands off,
wipe their hands of it, and let them race.
Honestly, they're both very equal drivers.
That's the more expensive option, because that's when people crash. Mm-hmm. That's when, and that doesn't hurt anybody else but you, because they're going to crash into each other.
That can ruin their whole championship.
They're going to crash into each other.
Yeah. No, they have before, haven't they?
No, not that. You're thinking of Charles and Seb.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's something that it could happen very easily.
Yeah. Well, it's what Rosberg and Hamilton did, back in the day. But that's the only fear I have with Ferrari. I think Ferrari have a very capable team. I think they're coming back from a really low point, finishing 6th in the Constructors' Championship in 2020.
Wow.
They finished third.
I mean, that year, Ferrari didn't have a
No, of course, no. They were pinned back by something, by like a regulation something. I know exactly what it. I just can't word it properly. But they just had a really terrible 2020. All the Ferrari cars, I think, had a terrible 2020. Because of it, because it was a Ferrari engine thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But they finished third last year, convincingly beat McLaren. I think if Danny Rick was in a better spot, it would have been a little bit different. But
if you know the car a little bit better.
Yeah. If you look at how Lando drove the car, I'm not saying Lando's the best driver in the world, but Lando's driven not that car, but the previous version of that car, essentially. Right? And he's been a McLaren long enough to learn the car, get good at it, which is what we saw last year, or the year before, rather. And then last year, he was able to just consistently get podiums.
Yeah, he was very consistent last year. He was very good last year.
Dude, I forgot how many races he got in a row with points.
Yeah.
Like, he was very close to having actually like a record with the most points finishes in a row. And then, it kind of just fell apart for him a little bit. Felt really, really bad for him in the Russian Grand Prix. I think a lot of people did. I think he deserved that win. And it was just a bad strategy call. People, I remember seeing someone's like, he's just going to end up like so-and-so. He's like, all talk, bunch of podiums, but never winning. And I'm just like, the kid has podiums to his name. He's fighting for wins. He's at McLaren, the best team to be at probably right now. A team that's on the rise, and it's showing that they're on the rise. It's not like a Williams that's like, we want to get back to the top. It's a team that's actually doing it. Yeah. Actually doing it, So I think he's a future. I think he's a future world champion in my opinion. But the car was, I forgot, my thought process went off the rails there, but I think Danny Rick can do it. What was I talking about?
I think we kind of just...
No. Danny Rick is a great driver. The car is great. He just wasn't
used to it.
Wasn't used to it. Lando Norris is not the greatest driver in the world. He's pretty good though. He drove the wheels off that thing. The car is capable of being in the points every weekend. Plain and simple.
You know what I think we should talk about? Aston Martin.
I don't know if I want to talk about Aston Martin. Aston Martin is like one of those weird neutral teams now.
Yeah.
It's the Switzerland of Formula One teams where you don't know where they're going. You don't know if they're going up or down.
First of all, let's talk about their livery.
I love their livery. That I will talk about all day. I love the livery. I think the idea to ditch the pink, which I loved, but did not work with that other livery, was a great idea. They're no longer sponsored by BWT, therefore no pink.
Thank God. I remember when we first saw the BWT livery. That was...
Oh, I love the pink livery.
You did?
That's one of my favorite liveries ever. I'm gonna buy a replica and put it on the desk.
Yeah?
No, but I love that livery. I do. I think the pink car is great.
I mean, I don't have any, I didn't like...
The last one, the Racing Point one we saw. That pink.
That one was okay.
The slightly lighter pink.
Yeah, I didn't like... That's what I'm talking about. I didn't really like that one.
Yeah, and then But, the pink accents on the green car, I didn't like. And the green that was last year was just too dark.
Yeah. This one's like a perfect color.
It was just too dark. From certain angles and certain lighting, it looked like the Mercedes.
Yeah.
It looked like a black car.
Yeah.
So I think this one's a little lighter. I think it'll be a little more standoffish. Alpine is now pink. They have a pink car. That they're running the first 2 rounds. It's all pink. It looks like a Racing Point from 2020, 21.
2020?
2020.
2020.
Yeah. and then they're going to go back to their original Alpine livery with the pink slapped on it. Yeah. Which, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of growing on me a little bit. It still doesn't look good.
I mean, we have the green screen. We can show these cars behind us.
I am. Yeah.
Oh, okay. As you can see, the Alpine with the pink. That's
the beauty of a green screen.
Yeah.
Not a TV.
I'm not in charge of the green screen. I have no idea what he's doing. So,
me neither. This is all in post. Also, if you're listening to this, it doesn't matter. But, yeah, probably worth mentioning. There's a video version of this you can watch. It's just us on a couch in front of a green screen. We put stuff up. But if you don't want to watch, totally understand. I don't watch podcasts either. You can listen to it on Spotify and wherever Apple you get Music, your podcast. Or
Apple
Podcasts.
Yeah. Google Podcasts.
All of that will be linked down below.
Yeah.
All the. If you're listening to it, you found us. Right. But if you want an alternate version, there's a bunch of them. You can go check them out. Anyway, back on track. Ferrari looked great. Aston Martin. I think they're gonna go down the order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
see it happening. I think, and I can't chalk it up to a specific reason, but I said it before. We were just watching Drive to Survive, by the way. I said it before. Every team wants to be top 5 or top 3, or they want to win the constructors, or they want to win the drivers. Someone has to do the other end of it, right? When Mercedes wins the drivers or the constructors, someone has to come in second. Someone has to come third. Someone has to come 10th, right? So if Alpine are like, we really want to be 5th, or we really want to be 3rd, someone has to come in 7th. Someone has to take their place wherever they are, down below. And for me, I think Aston Martin, one of those teams, Lawrence Stroll is ahead of it now.
Lance.
No, Lawrence, his dad.
You talking about
his dad?
Okay. I think with the driver.
No. Lawrence Stroll. He talks a big game, and I think he's a really good person to have on that team. But I think that they will be around where they were last year. I don't think they're going to get any better. They are powered by Mercedes. They are, I think they're pretty decent team, and they have, it's Aston Martin. It's not like they're nobodies, but it takes a little bit more than that to move up the grid, especially in a time like right now when we're doing regulation changes and stuff. This is when every team is vulnerable. You don't really know going in what the best route is for your side pods. You don't really know what the best rear wing is. You don't know what the best diffuser is. Nice Subaru, bro. I don't know if you heard that.
That was not a Subaru, was it?
I don't know. Whatever. Someone drove past.
That sounded like a truck.
I don't know. Anyway. You don't really know what the best path to take is. So, not saying that Aston Martin isn't going to show up next weekend and start front row and have fastest lap and win the race. Not saying that at all. It's amazing to me that we're after testing. I thought by this point I'd have a better idea who's where. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
But it's hard to say because a lot of teams aren't.
I don't know.
We don't know if they're
the top teams. The top teams is a little easier, right? With Mercedes, they won the constructors last year. I could confidently say, I think they're going to do well. I think they can at least still compete for that top spot. Will they get it? I don't know. But I think they'll be still competing for it.
I mean, I know how you were talking about it before, how Lewis Hamilton sometimes says, he doesn't have faith in his team. And he said that again.
No, but he does. That's just what he says in practice.
I think...
To shake it up.
Yeah.
But he does. You ask him in a press conference, what do you think about the car this year? Oh, I always think my team is well-equipped to do it. I think But he'll always spread the whole... He won't talk down his team. It's not that he doesn't have confidence.
He'll talk up other teams.
He'll talk up other teams.
Yeah.
He'll make it seem like Mercedes is going to be 6th or 7th on the grid. When in reality, they're probably going to be 3rd.
Yeah.
Or something, which is not that bad. And they're probably still going to be fighting with the constructors. And they'll probably still have a hand in the Drivers' Championship. But, someone has to finish 7th. Someone has to there's 10 teams on the grid. There's going to be 10 teams at the end of the season, hopefully. So, when Aston Martin or Alpine want to move up, someone from the top, like a McLaren or a Ferrari or a Red Bull, have to move down. That's just how it works. That's simple math. You're not going to have 2 second-place finishers or 2 fourth-place finishers. Like, it's just someone has to move up so someone can move down and vice versa. The question is, who? I think Aston Martin have probably made great strides. But is it enough to dislodge the guys at top? Is it enough to be like, we did a better job than Red Bull, and now we are second in the championship?
Right.
Or we did better than Red Bull. They are now 3rd or 4th in the championship, and we are 5th. Is it enough? And you're talking about over 20 races this season. One of which is now to be determined. I'm very excited about that because we got rid of the Russian Grand Prix. I'm not excited that we got rid of a race. I'm never excited that.
But we're excited
that
to see
people are not going to be able to have a home race now.
Right.
But
we're excited to see what it's going to become.
I'm excited. I think it's going to be Turkey. I think that's just the fallback. I want it to be Portugal.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Portugal would be a good race.
Yeah.
The Algarve.
Yeah. We're Portuguese, by the way. So, we're biased.
That's why we're kind of biased.
We're biased. I'd also be kind of okay with a doubleheader somewhere. I don't typically like that. We had a doubleheader last year with Austria. It's kind of boring, Formula 1. I get why you did it in 2020. Kind of get why you did it last year, but I don't think we need to do that again. I think that we have enough rounds to where you could maybe lose 1 or 2. And I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and say, maybe not this year, because it's too short notice, and you need to modify the track. But Kyle Lamy, can we please have a race in Africa? It's a world championship. Mm-hmm. We don't have a race on that continent.
Yeah.
There's 6 continents
and I think
that we can have a race on.
Antarctica, a snow track.
Well, that's next.
Snow track.
Yeah. Well, Red Bull won that one. They've had a lot of experience in the snow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the possibilities for tracks are in. I think that they just need funding, and we could go to a Kyle Lamy. But there's also tracks that we've just abandoned, like India. We haven't gone to India in a while, and there's a whole story about that. We might get into it on an off episode where we don't have a race to cover. But
right.
Valencia, a great track from what I've heard. I didn't watch a race there because it was so long ago, but a great track. We don't go there anymore.
There's so many tracks that are just unused.
It's abandoned. Indianapolis. Indianapolis. That's not abandoned, but that's a good track. Daytona. It'll be so. Listen, I'm very excited for another round in the U.S. I'm from the U.S. Not that I'm going to be able to go to the round, but it's nice to have another round here in the U.S. Why didn't they do it in Daytona? Why did they go and make a course around a stadium in Miami when the Daytona is not that far away from Miami? Go to Daytona. Go to the road course in Daytona. The bank track. And I'm not talking...
That is a very good track.
Come on, man.
It's not there for nothing kind of thing, It's...
that track actually has a lot of history. It has the banking, 2 bankings. And I think it'd be very cool to see Formula 1 there. So maybe if Miami doesn't work out, you can go to Daytona.
Yeah.
I think you'd be able to sell more tickets too, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. The U.S. is kind of warming up to F1.
I want to go to one.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to the Canadian one. That's sold out, unfortunately.
Austin, Texas.
Yeah, we're going to look into going to Austin.
It's in Austin, right?
Yeah. We're going to look to go to Austin.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be... It's a good race. Decent race.
It's a race we can go to.
I just want to see a race, I was debating going to Miami. I was like, it's going to be like Russia 2.0. So it's probably not going to be a great race. But who knows? at the end of the day, it's still going to see Formula One. So.
Right.
I think that does it for the first episode. I hope we covered everything. If we didn't, I know there's so much going on right now, both in the world and in F1.
Right.
COVID's still a thing. We have this now new situation going on in Europe, which I hope doesn't go much longer.
Yeah.
I
hope it resolves pretty quickly.
Yeah, and peacefully. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We're right on the money, maybe 1 hour. This is how long we have to go.
All right.
Hell yeah. There we go.
First episode done.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Probably not, because we're very disorganized.
Yeah.
But
it's the first episode, you can't really.
Yeah, this is just to get rid of the kinks, I think. I hope the green screen works.
Yeah, that'd be pretty bad if it didn't.
Yeah. I mean, most people are just going to listen to this anyway.
Yeah.
And they're only going to listen to the first 2 minutes and be like, oh, these plebs don't know what we're talking about.
Exactly, yeah. So, I bet you 98% of people won't see this part of the show.
Yeah. We didn't talk about rookies. Tsunoda's still in. Schumacher still in. We talked about him.
Yep.
We didn't talk about Juan Yuzhou. I don't think anybody's talking about Juan Yuzhou. I feel bad for the kid. I think more people have talked about Oscar Piastri, who's not even in Formula One yet, than Juan Yuzhou, who is. But Juan Yuzhou, welcome to Formula One. I hope you stay out of trouble. I hope you have a good debut next week, and make your start in F1. And I hope it is a good one, and maybe you have a new future world champion in Formula One. Yeah. Who knows? That's what's so exciting about having a new driver in Formula One. You don't know. You don't know if they're going to be a Pastor Maldonado or a Michael Schumacher. You just don't know. No offense to Pastor Maldonado. He's actually a good guy. I saw a podcast with him the other day. It was pretty fun. It was a pretty fun listen. But you just, again, anything can and will happen in Formula One.
Yeah. It's the rules.
We're here to talk about it. As Drive to Survive stands who know nothing about Formula One,
because
compared to every other person who has a podcast on it.
Yeah,
we're just here to report what we see, give our opinions. You can tell us we're wrong. We know we're wrong, but we're still gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna have 13 weeks this year between all of the off weekends.
Yep.
We're not gonna miss a weekend. We might miss a weekend here and there, because we're doing other things.
Yeah.
For Overtake Media, but we counted. That's 13 episodes we gotta come up with. So definitely feel free to suggest some episode ideas. I already have a couple, but we can
13 or 30.
13.
It's 13 episodes?
Well, 13 episodes from here to the finale in Abu Dhabi, and then we're in off season again, and we got to figure that out.
Yeah.
If we take a break, if we
talk about something else.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty good first episode.
Yeah.
Drive to Survive came out 2 days ago. We've been watching it. We're on the 9th episode of the 10th
episode. Yep.
And the general consensus from me. This is how we're going to close the episode. I'm going to rate Drive to Survive, because that really is the final say of 2021. That's, all right, cool. Now we focus on 2022, because next week is when it starts. We're not going to give a crap about last season. All right? General consensus, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
I need them to have a little bit more, I think in prior seasons, it was just an easier watch. And I don't know if it was because it was a season I didn't actually watch. To be honest with you, this is the first full season I've watched. Last season, I watched a little bit of it. And I remember every round that I watched pretty vividly. And I remember, certain aspects of certain races. I'm like, man, they didn't mention that? That's pretty important. And then it would come up in another episode.
Yeah.
They probably could have done... Okay. That could be just the filmmaker and me talking. I have heard it from other places that it's not as good personally, so maybe that sways my opinion a little bit. But it is a little bit all over the place chronologically.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, personally, I don't really see any other problems like we've had in previous years, like fake car noises as much. I don't know. Maybe you'd be like, what are you talking about? There wasn't a single good clip of a car driving on a track. There's some team radio stuff. like the Yuki Tsunoda when he hit the wall. He hit the wall once, he's like, what did he say?
He's like, fuck, sorry. That was funny. That gave us a good laugh.
And then like 2 minutes later, he hit another wall and he's like,
fuck, sorry.
Literally same clip.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely pay your editors well, or else they'll do stuff like that.
Yep.
Because that guy knows what he did. He knows exactly what he did. And everyone knows. Like everyone noticed that. Like that's a pretty hard. It's a big. It didn't happen in 2 different episodes.
It happened in the same episode.
Literally 2 minutes apart from each other. You know. But yeah. Also the championship we had last year, I kind of just wanted 10 episodes of the championship, and then in between stuff that's going on, talk about Ocon, talk about talk about other things that are going on, sure, but like we had a whole episode on Nikita Mazepin. Why?
Yeah. It was kind of like
why, I do like Haas episodes though. That was my favorite episode in the first season. So
yeah.
All right, we've gone over the time. So
all right, yeah.
You don't want to give people the wrong impression.
This has been basically an F1 podcast.
I think it's just going to be called podcast. No, don't double podcast.
I kind of like podcast.
Podcast.
Because it's like we're calling it basically an F1 podcast, but then it's also a podcast. So it's basically an F1 podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the name, basically an F1 podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to have, it's a podcast, so it's basically an F1 podcast.
Okay.
You get it?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
What would be the acronym?
BA F BAF
BAFP. Welcome back to BAFP or BAFTP.
BAFIP.
BAFIP?
But instead of an I, it's a 1. BAFIP.
No, you can't abbreviate 1. The BAF F1 PP.
BAF1 PP.
Yeah.
BAFIP.
I don't know, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah, this has been.
If you made it this far,
radio.
Thank you.
If you haven't, you're not hearing this, so.
Yeah, screw you.
Yeah, screw you.
If you have, you're a legend. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week. We're gonna be dropping episodes every Monday. We're just gonna watch every Grand Prix we can and sit here right after and talk about it. Yeah. And then upload it the next day. So, thank you so much again for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to Overtake Media on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at overtake.media. Big thank you to our sponsor and partner, Rick's Magazine. You can go follow them.
Yes, we have one of those.
Yeah, we do. We have one of those. You can go follow them. All the links, everything will be down below. And we will see you for round 1 in Bahrain next week.
Yep. Can't wait for that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you again so much.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll see you soon.